So up next, we have another Zoom talk. We have Moshe Vardi. He is the University Professor Karen Ostrom George Distinguished Service Professor in Computational Engineering at Rice University. Looks like we can see your screen.
Okay, and you can hear me?
And we can hear you well, so whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, let me start by congratulating Soren on this auspicious occasion. I would have loved to be there in person, but life intervened. Soren had a great career. There was only one blemish on his career. We made him an offer to come to Rice, and he declined our offer. One of my life regrets. But he's done well nevertheless. I want to change tone a little bit and maybe kind of follow up on John Kleinberg's talk, but looking not at the internet technically, but looking at how the internet has affected society. And this is kind of a bit of a clickbait, how to be an ethical computer scientist. I will not really give you a manual, but I want to start a conversation. And I want to point out how the previous decade has kind of changed things and how we think of computing. So just looking at ACM, where I've been very active, in 2012, we celebrated Turing Centenary, which is all a celebration of the technology. And 5 years later was the Turing Award at 50, another celebration of how ascendant we have become. And then in 2022, just a bit over a year ago, ACM celebrated its 75th anniversary. And now the tone was a bit more sober and somber. Panelists will imagine what might be next for technology and society in the years to come. And many of the talks look at societal impact. So much so that one fairly distinguished participant, who will remain nameless, posted on Facebook, "I found the whole thing a little depressing. Why can we not just not celebrate the technology?" But you cannot divorce what happened in computing, what happened in society overall. Notice the date, June 10, 2022. One day before that, the House of Representatives started its hearing about January 6th insurrection, where we learn how essentially the President of the United States tried to subvert the legal transfer of power, the lawful transfer of power. And 2 weeks before that, here in Texas, we had the Uvalde massacre, where young gunmen killed 19 students and two teachers in a very, very tragic event. But I'm mentioning these 2 events because they point to a very, very deep polarization in American society. In July of 2022, New York Times held a poll about Trump. 92% of Democrats think he's threatening U.S. democracy, but 76% of Republicans think it was exercising his rights to contest the election. Regarding assault type weapons, AR-15, among gun owners, NPR survey in June 2022, among Democratic gun owners, 84% are in favor of banning the sale of such weapons. Among Republican gun owners, 75% object to such a ban. When you have such polarization, it leads to political paralysis and it puts democracy in danger because it erodes trust. Democracy requires a basic trust that we are all in it together. And this is being gradually eroded, so much so that people are seriously talking about the disunited states. You know, people are analyzing the possibility of the United States breaking into red and blue confederacies. You know, it's speculative, but the fact that people are speculating tells us something. So how did we get here? What happened? So for this, I'm going to take us back to 1981, where 3 pivotal events happened. The first pivotal event is that I arrived at Stanford as a postdoc on September 6th. Well, maybe it was not so pivotal, but about a month before that, IBM introduced the IBM personal computer model 5150, which nobody remembers, but it was the IBM PC. And I'll come back to the IBM PC in a minute. And earlier that year, Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as US president. So let's look at this impact of these 2 things, IBM PC and Ronald Reagan. So IBM PC was a smashing success. By January of 1983, a bit more than a year after it was introduced, Time magazine, usually it has the person of the year on its cover. Now it has the machine of the year. The computer move in and you see a desktop and a man looking rather glumly, in my opinion, at the desktop. And the IBM PC launched a tsunami of technology. By mid-80s, we had a computer on the desk of every knowledge worker. By the late 80s, every knowledge worker took a computer home. The World Wide Web was introduced in 89. Internet became commercial in 1995. Google was launched in 98. Facebook in 2004. iPhone 2007. And now each one of us is carrying a supercomputer in our pocket, a computer that's more powerful than the computer that sends Apollo to the moon. But we must also not just focus on technology, but look at the socio-economic context. Ronald Reagan launched a tsunami of neoliberalism, which is extreme, some people call it free market fundamentalism, which include basically minimize the states and just give power to the free market. So economic liberalization, reduction in government spending, privatization, deregulation, monetarism, tax reduction, globalization, free trade. Altogether by 2006, Warren Buffett said there is a class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that is making war, and we are winning. And what was he talking about? He talks about the dramatic increase in economic inequality, economic polarization in the United States. What you see here is just comparing the 1%ers to the 50%ers. So if you go back to 1962, the 1%er had about 12% of the income, and the 50%er, the bottom 50%, has about close to 20% of the income. And then you go over a period of over 40 years, 50 years, and you see it mostly starting around 1980, you see that we have a reversal. The bottom 50% has gone down to about 12, 13%, and the 1% has gone to about 20% of the income. So we have great economic polarization in this country. Now, this economic polarization was amplified by cognitive polarization. And it goes back to again, Ronald Reagan. Under the Ronald Reagan administration, the fairness doctrine was abolished. What was the fairness doctrine? The idea was that any broadcast license holder, ABC, CBS, NBC, must represent the news fairly. So reality is, it didn't matter if you watch ABC or CBS or NBC. It was more preference which anchorman, they're all men, which anchorman you liked. And but they all represented the news in a balanced way. Now, the FCC then decided we don't anymore because we have cable channels. So people can get all point of view by watching different cables. But people don't watch different cable channels. They choose one channel, that's what they watch. So the people who watch Fox News and the people who watch MSNBC are living in different realities. That's what we call today cognitive filter bubbles. And then came the internet and amplified it. Because when the fundamental business model for the internet was advertising, people discovered that just standard advertising did not work on the internet, and Google invented micro-targeted advertising. So we match the ads to personal preferences, and that required lots of personal data. So this became known as surveillance capitalism. And basically, right now, everything you see on the internet, unless you go to www.cs.rice.edu/Till-Lavardi, everything you search, everything you see on social media is really mediated by machine learning. And so we got, again, filter bubbles. We live in different realities. And this got us to where this country is. And I feel myself today as Enders. This is from the science fiction novel Ender's Game from 1985 by Orson Scott Card. And spoiler alert, in that book, Ender is a teenager. He and his team they think they're playing video games. They're not realizing they're actually fighting intergalactic war. And when they win the war, they've destroyed the civilization. And that's where they end up. Oh my goodness, what have we done? And that's how I feel today. I got into computer science because it was fun. And now I look, I say, oh my God, what have we done? We thought we were the Rebel Alliance. Turn out we are the empire. So the ACM Code of Ethics starts with the following paragraph. Computing professional actions change the world. To act responsibly, they should reflect upon the wider impact of their work, consistently supporting the public good. So how to be an ethical computer scientist? Consistently support the public good. And when we teach this at Rice, this is a quote from some Rice student where he explained why he will not go to work for Facebook. He said, I'll have a bachelor's degree from Rice. My skill will be in high demand. It will be easy for me to choose a company that is not ethically questionable. You don't even have to say that Facebook is evil. It's enough that it is questionable. I can go to other companies. So just finishing with reflection on us as CS faculty, if we educate socially irresponsible students, then we are not supporting the public good. So it's our social responsibility to convey this value of social responsibility to our students. It must be part of the CS curriculum. And I encourage you to look at the paper that I wrote with a colleague at Rice about 2 years ago on deep tech ethics. Thank you very much.
Questions?
How do you decide whose view of social responsibility to use?
If you read the US Constitution, the first paragraph talks about the public good. Just go read the preamble to the Constitution. It basically said the defense, a common defense, etc., more perfect union. And then there is a question, again, how do we as a society decide what is the public good? And the rest of the Constitution gives you a mechanism how we go about to decide the public good. And the answer is, it's going to be hard. We all know democracy is hard. It's the worst governance system except for all the rest. So there's no magical way by which I tell you there is an oracle who will tell you what's the public good. It's something that we are negotiating and discussing and debating, and I don't think we'll stop doing it. But we must start this conversation. Where you can look at some things that we're doing, and maybe they are debatable. On the other hand, you can look at some behavior by some tech companies, and the answer would be, I think it would be very easy for us deciding that Uber basically misleading the government is not a good thing. It doesn't serve the public good. So, but the answer is lots of debate, lots of discussions.
Any other questions? Yeah, a quick one maybe. So how do we become the Rebel Alliance? What sort of changes do we need to make to social media platforms or anonymity on the internet or incentive structures to fix things, or at least bring things closer to normal?
So there are many, this is now how to regulate technology, active of intense debate, all the way it's finally made it to Washington, DC. I have my proposal how to start things. And the answer is, whenever you use technology, you live in a shadow legal system. You don't live in a normal legal system where the laws are passed by Congress and signed by the president. You live in a shadow legal system where all the licenses are written by tech companies that are meant not to be read, and they're not read. New York Times calculated if you want to read all the licenses for technology used in a given year, you'll spend 2.5 months just reading these licenses. And so the answer is, we first have to eliminate the shadow legal system. I would advocate a simple law that says all click-through licenses, past, present, and future, are hereby nullified. Now, do we need law for cyberspace? Absolutely. But again, let's let you democracy to establish these laws, rather than let big tech corporate lawyers write these laws.
Great. Oh, we have one more question from Bill.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, please.
At first, I thought you were saying something you weren't. Then I decided it was because English was your second language. You said we should not educate socially irresponsible students. I think you meant we should not turn out socially irresponsible students.
Yes.
And if you didn't, then I worry about the issue of social responsibility against personal freedom really scares me. I'm an advocate of Hayek. I'm sure you're familiar with Hayek. And I wonder if a young student who is also an advocate of Hayek would in fact be considered not worth educating.
So I think you should read Hayek a bit more carefully. For example, people think of Hayek advocated no state involvement in the markets. It's just not true. Go read Hayek. I'm happy to send you references. Hayek was definitely Hayek scorned Van Mises, who was even more extreme than Hayek. Okay, so I would suggest that you read Hayek and open your eyes a little bit to what he's actually saying.
So what I'm worried about is I'm listening to you tell me, oh, I shouldn't believe in Hayek. Well, fine, that's good.
No, I didn't say that. I said go read Hayek more carefully.
I have read him quite carefully, but that's not my point. Even if I'm wrong, that does not mean that I should be denied an education.
No, I did not say that the students who believe in Hayek should be denied education. I think you should discuss with your students social responsibility, and there will be diversity of opinion, which you should welcome. I don't think all the students are required to adhere to my view of social responsibility, but they should understand, we take other concept. We take the concept of justice. I assume you believe in justice, but we debate what justice means.
Certainly.
Turn out 70% of the people, 70% of the people in this country believe in social justice. Of course, there are huge differences how they interpret it, and that's the way it should be. But let's start the conversation with our students.
May I say one more thing?
Sure.
My only worry is that we're seeing a tendency in this country right now for one side's definition of social responsibility to shut out any discussion from the other side of the issue. And I'll let it go at
Yeah,
that.
we can leave it at that. I don't think it's not something that Dr. Vardy was purporting, but that is, I think, a phenomenon that does exist in many different areas. So, which is not healthy for a conversation. So let's thank Dr. Vardy again. Thank you so much.